I finished Tales of Kenzera Zau a couple days ago, which means it's time to sit down and give my full, spoiler-free review of the game. My name is James, and I started this channel simply because I love video games. If that sounds like you, please subscribe to my channel so that you can see more videos just like this one. I played Tales of Kenzera Zau on my PlayStation 5. Total, I played it for a little over 10 hours, and I did get the Platinum Trophy. I played it for about 10 hours over the course of about a week. And then as far as difficulty goes, I played the demo on the normal difficulty, but did end up dropping the difficulty to easy shortly after the demo ended, which I'll talk about later. And I should also mention that all of the footage in this video was recorded on my Xbox Series S. And with all of that out of the way, let's get started with the positives. Number one positive is that I just had a really fun time playing this game. I played it for probably a couple hours a night for almost a week, and when I was at work, I was thinking about getting to play it more the next day, and the entire time I was really eager to get back to it. And without spoiling anything, while we're talking about the positives, I do want to mention that the story and the voice acting are both incredibly well done. The story specifically, as somebody who has lost a parent, I found it to be very touching, and I found it to be very relatable. That's all I'm going to say about the story. The voice acting is incredible. All of the characters sound so good and so distinct. You can tell so much about who they are and their personality just by the way that they come out in their voices, and that's without any even like animation on the characters.
Kalunga, god of death, guardian of the veil between the realm of the living and the dead. My name is Zau, shaman of Amandla.
And why, Zau, shaman of Amandla, have you called me to the realm of the living?
My Baba, a sickness plagued him. You have taken his soul, and I am here to reclaim it back.
I mentioned earlier that I did get the Platinum in right around 10 hours or so, and one of the things that I did really like is that the game, as far as length, does feel really balanced. Act 1 took about 3 hours, Act 2 took about 3 hours, Act 3 took about 3 hours, and then after that, Act 4 just kind of wraps up everything, and then the game is over. Another thing that I should mention is that I really like that you're able to get all of the collectibles in the Act 1 area before you start Act 2. You can't always do everything right when you come up on it the first time. However, I did enjoy that the backtracking was limited to each act. Speaking of backtracking, another high point of the game for me was the map. I like that you were able to fast travel from campfire to campfire, which I believe is uncommon in Metroidvanias. And the map also made it very easy to understand where you've already been, what areas still need to explore, and what areas still contain collectibles that you need to gather. I generally enjoy getting collectibles in games. I also enjoyed them in this game because I found that platforming and moving around the world was lots of fun and intuitive, and there was a certain amount of satisfaction that I got from being able to get through a difficult platforming section or conquer what the game considers to be like a platforming challenge. There's one boss battle at the end of each act, if I remember correctly, and I found those boss battles to be uniquely different and cool, and they would each have something that they require you to do that wasn't super obvious, but it wasn't so hidden that you had to fight the boss multiple times to be able to figure out what it was. And if I remember correctly, I think I beat most of the bosses my first time that I got to them. There were 3 different combat challenges that were a little bit more advanced. I think the game calls them arena challenges, and there's one of them in each act. I found those to be particularly fun as well. I don't think they do anything to balance it towards what level you are, but none of them seemed unreasonably difficult, and they did make you use all of the abilities that you had gathered. I'll talk more about combat later, but for right now, we're going to move into the mixed. The game has very generous checkpoints. which I liked, because if you die in a section, you can get right back into the action very quickly. However, you can get stuck in a battle or something with low health, which actually was why I had to lower the difficulty from normal to easy. A few minutes after the demo ends, you get to this area where you're like riding an elevator up. Enemies are spawning on it. I got to the section with low health. I didn't have any way to heal, and I also couldn't go back to a previous section because I was locked into that elevator. But I would still say that I enjoyed having those generous checkpoints. The only other mixed one for me relates to the visuals of the game. Visually, this game is very pretty. The colors pop. They did a really great job of having really bright colors that still seem like they fit into this world. I love the way the characters are illustrated, and even in the cutscenes, when two characters are talking to each other, they're not like animated or anything, but they're drawn so wonderfully that it doesn't even matter. The reason that this one isn't mixed for me is that sometimes in combat, the environment and the stuff around you pops and is so... I don't want to say it's distracting. It stands out so much that you can lose sight of projectiles, hazards, or enemies because they don't really stand out from the background very much. That doesn't really bother me either. It didn't prevent me from finishing the game. Before I give my negatives, if you like this video, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to hit 300 subscribers by the end of this year. So unfortunately, that does bring us to the negatives. I don't have a lot of negatives, but unfortunately, they are all related to combat. I mentioned earlier getting stuck on that elevator because I didn't have enough health to beat the enemies that were there, and I couldn't go back and heal or anything either. So throughout the game, there were just various like spikes in difficulty where everything will be fine, and then all of a sudden something will happen that's kind of that just feels kind of unfair. I also didn't really care for the basic combat. I didn't like that your character feels kind of slow and sluggish in combat, even though when you're platforming, you can move around the screen and it feels quick and fluid. In combat, you feel kind of sluggish. And related to that same sluggishness, I would often find myself getting kind of like stun locked by enemies where they would knock me down, and in the time it takes Zau to stand up, they've already like swung around and started hitting me again, only to knock me back down on my back, and I found that to be very frustrating. And then the only other negative for me is that later on in the game, there are a couple pretty long chase sequences that you end up having to play over and over and over again because you'll learn what to do in this part and then you'll like die. And then you'll be like, okay, cool. Now you run again and then you'll now get this far. And then you'll die again. Those chase sequences, I think, could have just been cutscenes, and they ultimately really just felt like they were trying to pad the game. That's all I have to say about Tales of Kenzera Zau. In the comment section, please let me know what you like or don't like about this game. And until next time, the best way to keep up with me is on Twitter and on Instagram at James_Solar, and also on Blue Sky at jamessolar.bsky.social. Thanks, guys.